you what has happened. Uh, Maybe everybody that is now in the room knows it already. Wauholland has died just 2 weeks ago. He had suffered on a brain stroke and was 2 months in a nearly comatic situation. Um, and But we found it's a very appropriate way here and surrounding, because this festival is a good and nice gathering for all the hacking community, and WoW would have appreciated that we have fun with this situation. That's why we want not to just tell something here, but give the occasion to everybody to add his saying or whatever during this gathering a little bit. And we want to tell you, for the ones that don't know exactly who he was, give some important stations of his life. And then we have a little film at the end, which was redigated by himself and a person, Wolfgang from the German magazine Taz. And yeah, he was a public person, and that's why a public surrounding, a gathering like this, will be the good situation for it.
So in addition, we will give some hints to you or some asks where you could help to continue the work of wauholland. We are collecting. We are collecting words and phrases of wauholland. In the internet, there is a web space. It's called wauholland.de, and there we collect words.
No, it's wauholland.de, sorry. It's not wauholland.de, it's wauholland.de.
Sorry.
Land means country in English. So it was a domain that he just registered for himself some weeks before he came to the hospital. So this shall be a sort of archive which where all what we can find should be documented. And first of all, we want to collect everything whatsoever findable of his writings, or somebody what he did about him, or what material ever.
Yeah, as you can see, this is somehow for all of us quite confusing. I'm convinced in this room there are many people who knew wauholland for probably just a short time, but many people know him for a very long time. And for most of us, of the young hackers, he was somehow always there. He was not only the founder of the Chaos Computer Club 20 years ago, he was also the founder of tons of ideas, witty slogans, anecdotes, stories, articles, long emails, even longer emails, postings. He was writing like mad. Who remembers him knows he was sitting at the terminal producing bytes, bits and pieces, like, yeah, he could fill a hard disk a day. He was permanently posting. He was a very public person, and everything he has to say and everything he said, he considered to be public, to be in the public domain. He once said that his life, when he will be dead, that his life will be found completely on Usenet and other electronic networks, all kinds. And I think now is the time for us to collect all these pieces together and to build the complete picture. When he registered the domain wauholland.de, he said, "Wauland is everywhere. Actually, that's now the title of the website. We're still working on what this actually meant, because many of us not always understood what he was saying. He was starting a sentence, and then he was inserting another sentence before ending this. And there was another story inserted, and another story inserted, and we're all thinking, oh my God, old man, what are you saying to us? We can't understand you. And then at that moment, he was closing the parentheses again and again and again. And at the end, there was one of these wonderful ideas he was always able to bring to the public. So wauholland.de is going to be a project to bring together everything that Wau has said, Wau has produced, and Wau wrote
played
wherever
with.
he was.
Yeah.
We'd like to give the people who do not know Wau, we'd like to give you a short overview over his life, what he did, and what the places were where he was actually doing something. Maybe Garrett, can you elaborate on this?
Wau was born 1951, and he was a very special child. He was very, very intelligent, and as I know, since 2 days, he was very, very well supported by his parents. So we know him as a master of hacking and as a very, well, heartily but rough person. A lot of us know when they speak personally with him, he was a very human person. He always told us how to deal with computers, and he was, in the beginning, in the public, the man who worked with computers. The hackers were people who only had a technique in their heads, and wauholland was the first who always showed we are also human beings with brains, with minds, with hearts, and with wishes. So the world of data knows him since 1981. Then he founded the Chaos Computer Club in Germany. 1983, he gave out the first newspaper, Datenschleuder. 1984, there was the first hacker congress in Hamburg. 1985, we together did the step in the official field. We wrote an expertise for the German government, for the Green Party. From this moment on, the Computer Club was a member who gave advice to the government. It's called Enquete Commission. So it's not very much known that the Chaos Computer Club up to today has to do this function. 1986, there was done the NASA hack, and with a lot of chaos for the club for the next years. 86, he tried to be commercial and founded a company named WYSIWYG. 1988, there was the COCOM Congress, and as you know, 1989, the borders between the two Germanys were opened, and wauholland was one of the first who moved in the German East and helped, for instance, small communities to get in the computerized area. He gave advice to them, and parallel to this, he did a lot of speeches to people, and first of all to young people. Up to his last years, up to this year, wauholland had a lot of fans among the young people, and he was also one in the club who was able to jump over the generation gap. So from up 99, he was rather famous, and he was a very questioned speaker. And he lived in the east of Germany and moved around between Jena, Ilmenau, and Berlin. since until, well, in Munich he stood also 2 years since until he settled in Berlin in 98 and 99. So 2 months ago he called me up and said, I now have found my home where I will stay for the next years. I do not want to move again. And 1 day later I got the call from the clinic that he's laying there. Well, this was very, very rough, the life of Wauholland. What I learned from his father, probably for all of you who knew them, was how sensitive he was as a child. We know him as a man like a bulldozer, and he never told a person that he was playing the flute in his youth. Until he was 17 or 18 years, he was a very, very good flute player who knew to play Beethoven and Mozart. So only for all of you who know his hard words and the hard situations with him, that's for to know to you that he was very, very sensible. And this is a thing we see in his writings. Yeah, what he writes, how fine he searches for the right expression. It's near lyric, and he himself, he never fit to give out a book or write a book or something like that, but we got lots of boxes with papers of Wauholland. I think the next 3 years, up to now 15 people told that I wanted to help us. The next 3 years we have to do to collect the writings and the words of Wauholland, and I hope we will have the strength and the power to do this in a very good archive that you can have access to the pieces you can use for your work. If you send us, please send us things you know from Wauholland, things he said, or anecdotes who lived with him. Send us to wauholland.de. Well, one expression, 2 expressions, he found it. One expression was the downgrade. Everybody knows, but there is an upgrade, and he was the first who said, okay, in some softwares there also happens a downgrade. It's a very, very nice word I learned from him. Or the other one, it's German, of course he was a German poet. Once he called the webmaster Bitfeger. Wow was always the person who downgraded big words or big situations to proper expressions. So much. Thank you.
Well, most notable, Wow, we consider Wow to be, a true hacker. He was always behind the freedom of every person. He was always the first to respect the opinion of other people, completely independent of what this opinion might be. So I think there's lots of stuff to learn from him. Not only to be friendly and probably even witty. I mean, you've seen him. You always had a screwdriver with him. But you know why? If you asked him, why do you have a screwdriver? He said, well, maybe I have to make a phone call. I think there's lots of stuff to learn from Wauholland. We could talk endlessly here, but on the other hand, it's very difficult to speak up for a person that is known to so many people. And we expect that in this room there are other people who might like to add to what we said, what your experience is, if there is anything you want to voice, anything you think should be heard about Wauholland. Before we hand out the microphone, I want to add that, well, we want to show that movie, we said that before, and for a more private experience and exchange about him, we want to meet with you, whoever is interested, in our C-space, in the space over there on the map. It's area number 5. You can't miss it. It's behind the monolith, this white dome and there we want to meet in a more private manner than is possible right here. So I don't know if there's anybody who wants to add something or bring up something on Wow.
Ingo.
At the moment, I'm a little bit sad.
Dichter.
Sad about yeah, all the things we heard about Wauholland, and that was, on the other hand, I'm very lucky that I had a great my English is not that well. Honor
Well,
or
you don't
pleasure.
have to use English if you can't.
Honor or pleasure to meet him and to share his ideas for me. He was one of the biggest frontiers in freedom of information for all people on the planet, and that's for I'm very, we say, dankbar.
Thankful.
Thankful.
Well, I've known Wow for about 15 years now. He's one of the 3 people who ever managed it to get into my email kill file for some time. So he was not always a very easy person to speak to or to live with. And, but he was one of the pretty few true visionaries. And so if you are so far ahead of many of the people around you, then sometimes, well, the other people around get lost, and that's what happened with Bao quite some time often. So yes, I remember him as a visionary who brought things forward way ahead their time often. And yes, I'm honored to have known him, sure. And so of course I'm pretty sad that he passed on now. But I don't think that Wow would appreciate this to be a sad evening. I think he would rather have us drink a white beer on his honor and have some fun rather than mourn him and go away depressed.
Yeah, I've known Val for like a couple of years now, and we had like great times together on different like chaos congresses and other meetings, and I'll definitely miss the times when we were sitting at a table with a beer and like having fights over things I would never have thought of myself. And well, he brought up those ideas, and we were like just discussing things until like the very early morning hours. And yeah, I'll definitely miss that. But hey, hackers don't die, they just like go sub without return.
When I think of WoW, I remember 2 aspects that were already mentioned from the guys on the podium. The one is his language. I think I had a short talk with Willy already. Most of his saying was so much to the point and so precise that, well, I think the non-German speaker, maybe they can never really appreciate what he did with language, what he did with not only programming languages, but also with the language he used to communicate with others, because so many of his sayings are simply not translatable. They're so much to the point. And another aspect I remember about him is I have a feeling that he would he have lived in another time, maybe he would have chosen the profession of a wandering monk or a nomad or something, because I always remember that while getting a phone call late at night and someone calling me, there's wauholland waiting at the train station and he needs a place to sleep tonight, and well, this guy really could have made, he could easily be a millionaire with all the knowledge he had, but he chose to be a wandering monk and just spreading the words and sleeping, at the places of people he seemed to like and he wanted to communicate with. And yeah, I will miss these two aspects very much.
Well, I think that I'm speaking of as part of the Italian community. We have met Wow only once in Italy when he came in the HEC meeting. I mean, an event like this, a little bit smaller, and we have seen him for 3 or 4 days, and it was actually a flash, because we have changed almost everything about our attitude by listening to him and by having such a person for 3 days living with us, staying with us. And actually I think that the Italian community that gathered in Milan 2 years ago with the presence of Wow and his speeches have, I think that have so much to be grateful to him.
Thank you for this. When Wow returned from Italy, he told to us, in opposition to that what was happening in Italy, we are eine regierungsnahe Kaffeekränzchen. How is this to translate? Well, a government appropriate coffee table. So that should be the German CCC, in opposite to that what's happening in Italy in your castle over there. Yeah, thanks.
It was even very difficult. That's a sort of personality, an aspect of his personality, because it was not easy for him to go to Italy. He didn't even have a passport at that time, and that's for many years. And at the end, now in hospital, for us it was very difficult to get him back in the system again. He did not have any papers what you can use. You need some papers for hospital and stuff, and he didn't have that.
So, and then in Munich, to keep up your story, in Munich, wauholland need a passport, and he went to the office there with a Hacke Bible under his arm and said, "Okay, I'm wauholland. You can read it here, and I need a passport." And he got it.
Well, I think it's now time to get into the movie, because we have not too much time here in this room. At the end, well, like we told you, we will gather a bit in the sea space,
which is number 5 on the map. You will find it. There will be also another event which is not dedicated to wauholland but to the CCC. The CCC will be 20 years old in 1 month's time, so there will be something going on in Germany we haven't figured out what.
Watch out in the net, there will be some informations about that.
Yeah. So and now we think the best thing is that Wau is speaking from himself because he was just the best.
But if you want to help us to keep his speaking, so look up wauholland.de. We are collecting also swear words he did, and probably there are a lot of lovely swear words you only have in your heads and we don't have them at the paper. Yes, wauholland.de. So, thank you.
Ein Gruß an alle Hinkel-Advokaten und denen widme ich den Disclaimer. Ein wirksamer Haftungsausschluss zu formulieren ist eine Kunstform und die Verwendung von irgendwelchen Zeichen und Begriffen erfolgt unabhängig davon, ob sie geschützt sind.
An- und Abwesende. Wenn ihr den Rundfunk höret, so denkt auch daran, wie die Menschen in den Besitz dieses wunderbaren Werkzeuges der Mitteilung gekommen sind. Der Urquell aller technischen Errungenschaften ist die göttliche Neugier und der Spieltrieb des bastelnden und grübelnden Forschers und nicht minder die konstruktive Fantasie des technischen Erfinders. Denkt an Ørsted, der zuerst die magnetische Wirkung elektrischer Ströme bemerkte. An Reis, der diese Wirkung zuerst benutzte, um auf elektromagnetischem Wege Schall zu erzeugen. An Bell, der unter Benutzung empfindlicher Kontakte mit seinem Mikrofon zuerst Schallschwingungen in variable elektrische Ströme verwandelte. Denkt auch an Maxwell.
So we meet over there at the monolith in the area that's mapped with a 5 in the map.